long since I sat in front of the camera. Honestly, life has really just been crazy for me. In today's video, I wanted to actually talk about something that's been on my mind lately, and that certain thing is the live action Winx Club reboot on Netflix called Fate the Winx Saga. And to be honest, I was debating even talking about this just because honestly, there's just so much I want to say, and you know, I'll just get right into it. And this is not going to be like super well thought out. I don't have an agenda planned. I don't have specific points that I want to cover. I'm just going to speak just really candidly about what I think about this entire thing. All of my thoughts and opinions are coming from a place of having the context of the original show. And to be honest, if the title wasn't a giveaway, I didn't really like this live action reboot. It definitely felt like my childhood was being ruined. It was being monopolized to create like more storylines and profit off of a franchise that honestly was good to begin with. If you don't want any spoilers for either of them, I suggest you click out of this video right now because I'm going to be talking about it in so much detail during this. First things first, let's just talk about the blatant things that you can honestly see in the trailer. Let's talk about the whitewashing. I wasn't satisfied with the casting, specifically of ethnicity and race. I just felt like, for example, Musa and Tara, come on. I mean, if you know the original, you know that Musa is coded as Asian. A lot of her style and also the planet that she's from, it very much was reminiscent of Asian culture and Asian architecture. And then Tara, I actually saw this from another video by Modern Girls. Apparently Elliot Saul, who plays Tara, was supposed to be cast as Flora. I think that whoever did this, the casting director was probably like, oh yeah, this is gonna create controversy because, you know, Flora is supposed to be Latina and Elliot Saul ain't Latina, so they changed her name to Tara. I mean, come on. If you're going to take my childhood and make it into something worse than what it already was, then maybe you just shouldn't have done it. Sorry. So getting that out of the way, I just wanted to talk about the problems I had with the characters in general. And also, along with the characters, I had some issues on the dialogue and how the characters acted with regards to the original. And I'm not gonna lie, when I got halfway through the show, I kind of just rejected my preconceived notions about what the show should be, because obviously it was already there and my favorite show had been Riverdale. Let's just talk about Bloom for a second. In the original, Bloom was considered the most powerful fairy because she possessed the power of the dragon flame, which is one of the, honestly, like catalysts and creators of the realm of magic. And it's clearly discussed even in season 1. You can see how powerful she is. She didn't even know she was a fairy, and she literally is blasting people out of this universe. So cool, love her. In Fate the Winx Saga, girl, she was so annoying. Like, she was an awful friend. She was so rude to everyone, honestly. Like, she kept on getting herself into trouble with no concern with how that would affect the people around her, and I could not stand it. She sucked. And then this deal with her being the most powerful fairy. I didn't understand how she was powerful at all. She's supposed to be a fire fairy, right? And then she ends up just burning her house down. One, the fire is going so slowly. I understand that that's probably due to the CGI limitations. I don't get how she's powerful. Her whole backstory in this one is that she's a changeling, and a changeling means that you're basically a fairy baby or a magical baby that was swapped with a human one at birth. I wonder if it's actually going to be the same story that was in the original, where Bloom was actually the lost princess of a kingdom called Domino, and yeah, she possessed the power of the dragon flame. It's all that whole deal. I wonder if they're going to actually take that story, bring it back to life in season 2, but still, I didn't really find it amusing. She got everything also without even deserving it. Like, for example, oh yeah, the end where we finally got a transformation, which I'll talk about that later, but like, why did she have to transform? She didn't do anything to deserve that transformation. It was beautiful, but I didn't understand how that came about. I didn't understand how she welded enough power to bring about this whole like fire transformation, getting all these fire wings. So Aisha, They did her character so dirty. I remember in the original, you know, she was a princess, but I guess they can't make everyone princesses. She was sporty, she was cool, she was the fairy of rays, she had this like morphing kind of power. She's one of the few people of color on the show. She really doesn't have a storyline for herself at all, which I'm just like, in 2021, are you still doing this? Like, not giving people of color a decent narrative? In the original, I felt like every single character had their own narrative. While Bloom was the main character, all of the other characters had equal importance, even though the storyline revolved mainly about Bloom, if that makes sense. Aisha felt like very much her storyline in Fate the Winx Saga was based solely off of Bloom's storyline. The only thing you really find out about her is that when she was younger, she got so mad that she flooded her school. Most of the other characters are like that. You get to know Stella a bit more, you get to know Musa a bit more, but not Aisha. And I'm just like, why? Like, why is that? Let's talk about Stella. Why was Stella mean in this? I know in the original, she was the princess of the group, but she never used that really as a way to put her friends down. But in this, you find more out about her character. Like, she blinded her past roommate, because that's all she can do in this too. That's all she can do is blind people, because she's a light fairy. Because she was like getting with Sky. Oh my god. And then she was just getting jealous because Bloom was there, you know, that whole thing. And then it was this whole love triangle. And I'm like, why do we need to pit girls against each other? Why can't we just have a nice sisterhood situation like we did in the original? Because Bloom and Stella were best friends. How can they do this? You know, she was vain in this, but she was mean too. In the original, she was vain, but it was like kind of like that cutesy vain kind of vibe. Like, it kind of made her character. And then also her mom. Girl, what was going on with that? I feel like I would have loved her mom to also have that like get up that she has in the original, where she has like this moon vibe going on. But I feel like since Stella is like a light fairy and not the fairy of the shining sun, it doesn't make much sense. Musa, and we did talk about this a little bit before. I don't really know the actress, like what she identifies as ethnically, and that isn't my like place to tell her how to identify, and neither is it her imperative to tell anyone. But the point is that, you know, she looks white passing, and Musa was coded as Asian. There's nothing really you can do about it now, and I don't think for like, I hear that there's talk about bringing Tekna from the original back and making her Asian, but also there's that whole thing where you're feeding into that model minority stereotype. But I will say, I felt like she was the best character among the 5 main fairies. I felt like she was the best. She was the least annoying, really, and I kind of liked the fact that she was an empath, but I also felt like they did her character kind of dirty, and that like she doesn't have any fighting abilities at all. Like, wouldn't it have been cool if she was still an empath and then she could kind of do some like telepathy and mind games, and maybe even still bring the sound waves from the original? That would have been kind of cool. But she had at least a little bit more character development than, for example, Aisha or even Tara. I didn't feel like Tara really had a lot of character development. But let's go on into Ribbon. Oh my god. And then we'll go on to Beatrix. Actually, funny story. So I remember Ribbon being super sassy and like kind of a dick, but I don't remember him being this bad. I felt like he was just all around bad. He was really problematic too. He said some really homophobic things, and he did remind me, I mean, not all dudes are like that, but like if you are in high school, I feel like a lot of dudes kind of are nasty. He kind of was one of those really nasty dudes who only talks about sex and is just like really rude. And also like he kept on fat shaming Tara. Like, ew, just leave. You're so annoying. Way, I have so many thoughts about him. I honestly forgot, like when he started dating Beatrix, I was like so confused, because you know how Musa and Ribbon were a thing pretty much the entire show. I think like at least Musa had a crush on him, and then eventually they started like dating and stuff like that. But in this, you know, I was so confused why they made him get with Beatrix. Then, I don't know if y'all know this, but I'm actually watching the original, and in the first season, he basically is dating Darcy. I'm like, oh, that tea. And moving on to my next point about Beatrix, I just pieced together that Beatrix has tricks in it, which reminds us of our kind of low-key awesome but also petty witches. But girl, I'm gonna say this, I mean, as sassy as she was and as interesting as her character was, I didn't get her at all. Like basically, yeah, I realized that they did put all of them together and call her Beatrix, but she did not compare. I did not find her intimidating. I didn't find her scary, but I just didn't also understand what motive she has to really do anything until maybe the very end, and still I didn't get it. Obviously she had Stormy's powers, and she kind of had all of their evilness combined into one, but at the same time her evilness, it didn't strike me as evil. It just kind of made me feel like she was trying to like mess up with the plans, but she wasn't necessarily evil. And I don't really know who the real villain is. Now let's talk about the world. Not only the world, but also the magic that is involved in this world. Also, random point, you know that scene, if you've watched it, there's this scene where all the 5 fairies go to Bloom's house on Earth and they're laughing and they're having fun.
Bitch, that's whack.
Like, y'all hated each other the last time I saw you. Like, you were making snarky remarks at each other. How are y'all friends? Why are y'all laughing? I don't understand this. Yeah, so Fate the Winx Saga takes place in this other dimension, parallel to Earth, it seems, called the Other World. It basically just looks so gloomy and rainy all the time. That's the only thing that I will say. It only has forests and this college looking place, which is basically Alphea School for Fairies. And right next to it, they have the School for Specialists that basically operates within the same school. In the original, there were actually 3 schools in the Magic's universe. There was Alphea School for Fairies, which is like the main school which the main characters go to. They basically transform into fairies and are able to also cast like some spells and use magic and things like that. There's the Red Fountain School for Specialists, which is in another location. Specialists in that, you know, they're pretty similar to specialists in this one, but you know, they were cooler. They had capes. We have in another place that's much more darker and gloomier, Cloud Tower School for Witches. What Beatrix was the combination of 3 witches from Cloud Tower, but like all of these schools together, they actually all work to fight against evil. So they completely got rid of the Cloud Tower School for Witches, which I thought would have been cool if we had the witches, honestly, but I guess that would have cost more money to hire more extras. I was watching this trailer initially in December and I didn't see any wings or any kind of transformation in general, and girl, in the first episode, the headmistress was like, oh well, transformation arts is an ancient form that we can't really do anymore. The way I literally was about to stop watching after the first episode. It's fine. I mean, you know, my girls be slaying with their enchantix and the songs, the dance, but at that point I was like, okay, I kind of lost hope, but we're still gonna go with it. But one thing I will say is that the world itself was super barren, and if you remember the original had so many elements of futurism that also were in play with the specialists, because they had a bunch of gadgets that they were using that were very much futuristic. And I know that even their motorcycles were flying. I really wish they kind of played into that element a bit more. If we weren't going to have transformations, at least we should have that, right? Because I remember there was literally a scene where Beatrix kind of kidnapped Bloom and she took her to Astrodel. She was driving a regular car. I'm like, are you kidding me? Apparently it was supposed to target people like me who watched the original and maybe wanted something else to watch that was kind of based off the original, but to be honest, it's not what we want. Don't need another show with really just tacky dialogue. I would have liked something a lot more wholesome and much more faithful, honestly, to the original in terms of tone, in terms of fashion too. And you know, it doesn't have to be extravagant. I just want to know what y'all think. If you've watched it and you either have context of the original show or you didn't, just let me know what you think below. I'm fed up with these live action reboots. Like, why do you transform and take something that was already good and make it bad? I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you later. Bye.